We need some more coffee after this session. We've got Jonathan Levin, who's the CEO of Chainalysis. Jonathan, I thought we could just actually start. You guys are maybe outside of the big exchanges, the Coinbases and Binances of the world. You guys are one of the largest crypto companies. Maybe not as public facing with like some of the retail marketing as these exchanges, but I don't think people realize just how big you guys are and the scope of the business. Can you just start by laying out like what is Chainalysis? How big are you guys? What is the business?
Yeah, we don't sponsor F1 yet, and we haven't bought a cycling team, which is like my dream for Chainalysis. Like we will have made it once we get to that point.
You only sponsor the things that matter, right? Like DAS.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And so Chainalysis today, we sell our software, which is both investigation software and compliance software, as well as fraud prevention and security software in 100 countries around the world. We have 1,500 clients across a range of government agencies and private sector entities, everyone from the smallest innovators on DeFi to the largest enterprises that are transacting on chain, and some of the largest banks in the world. And so, for us, we've been around 10 years and have really pioneered the idea that actually everyone in the industry is going to need to have access to blockchain intelligence, really not just the transactions themselves, but how those transactions got there. And so we package up that information and we give it to the world's leading government agencies who oversee the industry, to the largest enterprises that are transacting on chain, as well as all of the protocol teams that need to secure themselves against nation state level hacks and the threats that we face.
Yeah. What are they actually using you for? What does the product do?
So we have a range of products. We sort of split the business into sort of private sector use cases and public sector use cases. On the public sector side, we get used by regulators around the world who are literally overseeing those markets. They use blockchain data to be able to perform investigations, prosecute fraud cases, understand market manipulation and other types of things that are happening inside the market. And so that's like regulators. And then we have law enforcement and national security. And those are about, finding money laundering cases, finding criminal cases and national security cases. And we've seen a lot of success in helping governments around the world seize cryptocurrency from criminal actors, as well as identify national security level threats and disrupt that. So that's really our government business. And on the private sector side, we've been providing compliance software to private sector actors for 10 years, helping them comply with anti-money laundering regulations and obligations. And so if you are a financial institution that's looking to get into cryptocurrencies or use stablecoins, the first question that you often get is like, how can we do compliance? And very simply, that's what we've been building for 10 years and providing to the sector. And so people use us for their compliance obligations. And then more recently, we've moved into fraud prevention, which is another huge topic for the industry that we've been wrestling, and as well as Web3 security and helping secure smart contracts and wallets and those types of things.
Should we talk North Korea?
Yeah, let's do it.
Feels like the kind of whack-a-mole game that the whole industry is playing is with actually North Korea right now, and it feels like that is, I think, specifically with the Bybit hack, I think that was the first time a lot of the industry woke up to the fact that, oh wow, this is actually a huge risk to this whole industry, is North Korea basically attacking all of these different protocols and centralized exchanges. What are your just general, I mean, we can talk about how Chainalysis maybe helps with that if you want, but I'm more curious just like general thoughts on how should this industry think about North Korea, and maybe for the folks in the room who aren't aware of what I'm talking about, can you just give a lay of the land of what's happening?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we've witnessed is that Lazarus, which is the group associated with DPRK that has been stealing cryptocurrency from a range of different actors across the space. And it's impacted everyone from DeFi protocols, as you mentioned, to centralized exchanges. And really, over the last few years, we've seen their tactics evolve, and the targeting of institutions has increased. And what we've seen is that DPRK used to steal money over SWIFT, used to steal money through different types of money laundering mechanisms, hacks of large casinos, etc., to actually stealing money from cryptocurrency businesses or entities that are transacting with crypto assets. And so, those attacks have been a range of attacks on the infrastructure itself. So that's where they look at smart contracts on the blockchain and they figure out some vulnerabilities and they go and exploit those just in the wild, to, building very sophisticated social engineering attacks and then actually compromising the wallet infrastructure, whether that be in the Bybit case of compromising the front end infrastructure or actually getting access to keys and stealing money from entities. And so we've seen a range of different strategies. To put it in some perspective, they're stealing multiple $1 billion a year at this point from the industry, which is, to put that in context, is sort of somewhere between 5 and 10% of GDP of North Korea. So it's a big industry and it's a big problem for us. I like to say that we're actually in a cyber war between the people that are transacting on chain and North Korea.
If you were, well, I don't know who's really running Ethereum. If you were if you were Toli, or if you were Raj, or if you were the new folks at the Ethereum Foundation, or if you were, I don't know, Richard from Binance or something, or Brian at Coinbase, like how would you? Because you guys help with post-hack, who did it, where are the funds going? But if you were in their shoes, how would you prevent these hacks?
So we actually now operate even pre-fund loss too. So one of the things that I looked at, so we publish a report every year called the Crypto Crime Report, which is our survey of all of the sort of illicit activity that happens in crypto. Firstly, we wanted to make sure that financial institutions understand that not all crypto is money laundering. And so, we wanted to make sure that, institutions have the data at their fingertips to understand what is the magnitude of this problem as it pertains to the total amount of activity. And you can see that, criminal activity on crypto is still less than 1%, even though we talk about these big, hacks or compromises. It's still a very small amount of the total amount of assets that are out there. If you think about the industry being a $2 to $3 trillion market cap, stealing a few $1 billion is a lot of money, but it's not in comparison to the total asset class. When it comes to then defending it, like I said, we need to be, as Chainalysis, we need to be helping our customers tackle the largest reasons for fund loss. And so, we bought two companies. We bought a company called Hexagate, which does real-time security monitoring on protocols, helping before the fact actually identify these types of smart contract vulnerabilities and attempts to steal money. So we are actually in line of preventing losses for those types of attacks. When it comes to the social engineering attacks, that's not my world. But institutions, organizations have been building insider threat programs. They are very sophisticated at this point in a lot of the larger crypto enterprises that you touch on, especially the centralized services. I think that it's really important, if you are an ecosystem, that you are educating your ecosystem about some of those threats. And I would advise people who are in sort of a protocol, building a layer one. It is an important security element for your entire ecosystem to make sure that everyone's running a secure protocol. It's a good idea to invest in the monitoring technology so that you understand what's going on your L1, but also that you help people understand that this is a threat, that there is social engineering attempts happening from North Korea.
What do you think about the idea that as more tools like Chainalysis come to market, and as you guys get better and better products, privacy in the industry goes down? And I'm just curious if you just your general thoughts around what amount of privacy we all should have. I'm assuming if everyone in this room had a crypto wallet, you could tell Coinbase or the IRS who these people are. Good for them, good for crypto adoption, maybe bad for the individual user?
I would say that privacy is actually a function of the products that people are using in the industry. So privacy is not like a function of Chainalysis. Privacy is a function of what are the products and services that people are actually adopting and what are their features. And if you look at like the difference between sort of the users that use Coinbase, where essentially if you use a centralized service like Coinbase, you're relying on Coinbase to provide you the financial privacy that you're used to having in any other environment. And so I think that when you look at it in that way, there are a lot of people who use Coinbase, use Kraken, use Gemini. Like those entities are providing you exchange services, but they're also providing you the promise of financial privacy that you're used to getting in a traditional financial institution, and they protect your identity and they protect your transactions on chain. So that's really where I see, like if you think about the definition of what level of privacy is important, you actually see people select products and services that suit them. And so you'll see institutions use those types of services in order to not show themselves on chain and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. 2 acquisitions recently? 3 2 acquisitions.
Yeah.
All right, any more in the hopper?
None more in the hopper today, but we're still looking. I mean, look, I think that from my standpoint, Chainalysis has built the platform upon which it makes sense for us to acquire companies that are operating, that are serving enterprise use cases that are complementary to us. So we are the company that knows the most about how and why people are using cryptocurrency. That information is very valuable to lots of different enterprise workflows. There have been a lot of companies built that are doing a good job of providing some of those enterprise workflows, and some of those make strategic sense for us to get into. So, we've started with 2 verticals that we know very well. We know fraud prevention. We know how important it is to the adoption of crypto assets. And so we bought a company called Altaria that is running really the best threat intelligence and fraud intelligence for all authorized push payment fraud. So for those people that are not familiar, the fastest growing fraud vertical for the industry is when you authorize a payment, the legit person authorizes a payment to something that they don't want to. And this is like, every ticket scam, every investment scam, every time that you buy a Doge, like an actual dog on Facebook Marketplace, and the dog doesn't arrive, like that is a scam. And those types of things have actually started to proliferate at a faster rate than third party. And so unauthorized third party has been solved through biometrics and other things. First party authorized fraud is really difficult to tackle, and it's being supercharged with like generative AI. So we bought a company in that space to help prevent that from happening, because it will stop the adoption of crypto assets as a result. And we bought Hexagate to really prevent fund losses through hacks, smart contract compromises, and those types of things. And both of those companies have unique data about how and why people use cryptocurrencies that are essentially building the data moat that Chainalysis has.
What is the role of, you guys are basically in this like AI-driven world. There's probably 2 things that I think we talk about at Blockworks that matter. It's distribution, proprietary distribution, and proprietary data. And you guys are kind of the kings of the proprietary data side.
And distribution.
Because you sponsor DAS, yeah?
Well, yeah, because we sponsor, yeah. I'm
kidding, yeah.
Well, like, I think you have to think about it like this, is that, we think that, we've been collecting more data about, how and why people use crypto technology for the last 10 years. We have that unique data asset. We have the largest number of enterprise clients that transact on the blockchain of anyone.
So that's the distribution. So that's 1,500 clients.
So that's our distribution advantage as well, is that like we have both the proprietary data and the proprietary distribution to leverage AI technology to surface our insights to all of our clients. And so, we think that we are in a great position to be able to take advantage of this technology. We are already using AI in accelerating how we do data collection, particularly on the fraud prevention side, which has been very effective. And we're starting to experiment with how do we expose AI to actually our customers in our products to give them the insights that they need. And so, we think that we think largely about like proprietary distribution, proprietary data as both being like the primary drivers of businesses moving forward, particularly with the advent of AI.
This is more unrelated to Chainalysis question, but just on a founder to founder level question, because we're having an interesting conversation back there that we didn't fully finish. Blockworks has almost 100 people. You guys have several hundred people. And I'm just curious how you think about the role of AI internally and how you think about hiring linearly. Maybe in the past you hired linearly. In the future, can you limit the hiring? Will you ever just cap the number of employees you have? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that all CEOs have to be thinking about today is like how much operational leverage can you drive out of AI? And I think there's a few interesting questions that people should be asking themselves. I mean, I push our product teams to think about like what are the things that we would struggle to do with AI today that will become easier in 6 months. And we need to focus on those opportunities because actually, like a lot of the opportunities that exist today, you're going to be building in a way that you think about AI in its current form and you don't necessarily realize the future of that opportunity. And so, we've seen like an enormous shift in like video production by AI. Like it's still very expensive. It's going to get cheaper. It's going to get better. Language, it's going to get cheaper. It's going to get better. Like we see some of those like eventualities that actually it's worthwhile at this point with the amount of capital that's being invested in all of that technology. It's worthwhile betting on the thing that you think ultimately AI will do a better job of. I think the other thing that CEOs and product leaders should be thinking about is really like what pieces of data do you currently sit on about how people use your products that gives you very high signal about where to leverage AI. Like go and look at some of your product usage patterns and think about the ways in which automation and AI can actually help solve that user experience problem. Like those 4 clicks that users have to do consistently inside your products to achieve like some basic outcome, that's going to become increasingly frustrating for people in a world where user experience is improving dramatically. And so those types of things are like the questions that CEOs should be pushing down to their teams of like, look in the product utilization metrics and form a very good theory and business case about like how AI actually helps the customer better achieve that mission outcome.
Maybe as we last question, I'm looking out in the room and recognize a bunch of faces from different banks, like Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, and different folks in the room who are, I know just through conversations today, still trying to maybe get a digital asset product or strategy off the ground. This is the year that they're doing it. Still kind of torn on which direction. What maybe advice would you have to them, and where could Chainalysis play a role?
So I think that when it comes to the sort of maturity curve of financial institutions that we see in our market, there are the banks that are already engaged on banking businesses, and obviously there is sort of a lot of interest on stablecoins, particularly with the recent sort of bill being passed in the Senate. Is would we be able to bank a stablecoin? Would we even be able to hold assets on behalf of an issuer? That's like a really good question to ask. Is what would it take to get comfortable with that? The next is like, what are the opportunities within private wealth and institutional custody that actually people should be looking at? And again, what would it take to offer that product to our customers? And really, those are sort of the primary questions. And then you can get into, well, what types of products should we be launching ourselves? And should we be a brokerage? And should we be thinking about exchange-traded products? Should we be thinking about derivatives and options? Like a lot of those like come beyond that point, but really fundamentally the building blocks are we willing to bank and provide operational accounts for the industry, and are we able to custody assets for some of our key clients that will help us learn about like all of their demands and all of their innovations around the products.
Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan Levin of Chainalysis, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.